Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden met with the CEOs of 19 major companies on Monday to discuss the global chip shortage that has now severely hurt US automakers and also threatens other sectors, including national security. During the meeting, Biden said that he had bipartisan support for legislation to fund the semiconductor industry and that he had already included it in his $2 trillion infrastructure plan. Intel chief executive Pat Gelsinger, who attended the meeting, said that the company wanted to start producing chips at its factories within 6 to 9 months to address a shortage that was idling assembly lines at some U.S. automotive plants. The supply crunch could lead to a potential 1.3 million shortfall in U.S. car and light-duty truck production this year. Semiconductors are a key component of many computerized electronics.
Chips like the one I have here, these chips, these wafers, are batteries, broadband, it's all infrastructure. This is infrastructure. So look, we need to build the infrastructure of today, not repair the one of yesterday. And the plan I propose is going to create millions of jobs, rebuild America, protect our supply chains, and revitalize American manufacturing. And it's going to make America research and development a great engine again. We led the world in the middle of the 20th century. We led the world toward the end of the century. We're going to lead the world again. We're going to lead it again in the 21st century.
The White House meeting included executives from 19 major companies, including General Motors, Global Foundries, Taiwan Semiconductor, AT&T, Samsung Electronics, and Google's parent company Alphabet. It was also attended by the White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, the National Economic Council Director Brian Deese, and Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo. Automakers have been hit particularly hard by the global chip shortage after many cancelled orders when their plants remained idle due to the pandemic. When they were ready to resume production, they found chip makers were busy fulfilling orders for the consumer electronics industry, which has seen demand for premium devices, both for work and leisure, as people spent more time at home during the pandemic. I earlier spoke with WION's correspondent Nick Harper, who has been reporting for us from Washington, D.C. Listen in to his inputs on the story.
Well, Joe Biden essentially is trying to put the United States in a position where it can continue to compete around the United States, continue to produce its own semiconductors, its own chips, but also ensure that it can be safe, self-reliant. As we've seen during the course of the pandemic, these supply chains around the world have caused problems for the US. There were a number of parts, including essential medical supplies that they were trying to get from China that they simply weren't able to. Those global supply chains broke down during the pandemic. So the US wants to ensure that it is in a position to be able to continue supplying the US with all the chips that it needs. We've already seen those problems for the automotive industry in the US, Ford and General Motors temporarily closing plants. But Biden is also saying that this is an issue of national security, that these chips go into a whole range of things, from civilian life right through to the US military side of things. So he wants to keep American industry safe, but he also wants to keep Americans themselves safe. So he's very much pushing this idea that the US needs to spend much more to consolidate their efforts to be self-reliant in the manufacturing of these semiconductors. And that's why he's tying it into his massive $2 trillion infrastructure plan, saying that it's not just about roads and bridges and repairing those, but also putting things in place to make sure that the US is manufacturing the things that it needs for coming years.